Welcome back to today's episode of the Head of the Race podcast. I am back after what feels like years, months, decades, because kind of learning to balance podcast hosting with studying and with doing everything I do in my life has been a challenge. But I thought today either I'm gonna procrastinate for this hour because now it's like 6 p.m. This is when I start to get a bit, bored with studying, and I'm kind of not really ready to not study, but then I'm kind of like procrastinating it. So I thought, you know what? I might as well just hop on the mic and do some podcasting because it's one of those things I love to do. And finally, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about Vuelta stuff, and let's talk about finally, for the first time on this podcast channel, F1, which I feel like that's going to be cool and exciting because sometimes I personally feel more confident in my F1 knowledge because I've been watching it for just, much longer than cycling, and also kind of been a geek. Oh my God, I'm a freaking F1 geek. So yeah, although with the current season, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to keep watching. I mean, it's not tough to keep watching, but it's sometimes tough to be as like laser focused and just, so into the sport when you kind of know who's going to win, what's going to happen, and the race is just going to be like a procession. Is that a word in English? Procession is like when a priest does like a walk through in like a town. I don't know. Whatever. You get the point. It's kind of obvious who's gonna win. But back to what I was saying. First, we're gonna talk about cycling stuff. There's not much to talk about. Although I did not talk about the controversial Vuelta. I don't know which stage it was. The Vuelta finished like, I don't know, over a week ago. So I do not remember the exact stage it happened, but there was a whole stage where if Jumbo dropping Sepp and, all that got resolved because Jumbo then won the Vuelta with Sepp, and like we can all forget that happened because then they were domestiques for Sepp, and let's, be over it and let's forget. But at the same time, I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like a bloody wound and it kind of heals up and you're like, I'm ready to, go out again. No, like there's still a scab on the wound. It's not fully healed. I still feel like it creates a perspective into the different mentalities of different riders on the team and all that kind of stuff, which now I'm going to be kind of side-eyeing what's going on at Jumbo because I feel like they themselves were not prepared for this crazy world domination of them winning every freaking race. Now currently the European Championships happened, and you're like, yeah, cool, a French guy won, a Belgian was second, and a Dutch one was third. That must be like 3 different teams probably, or like, oh, maybe 2. The freaking podium was a Jumbo 1, 2, 3 with Van Aert just kind of being second again. I feel so bad for the guy. Like, imagine you're considered one of the best riders in the world, but you just can't win. The guy just can't win a championship, like a world championship, European championship. Like, oh my God. Like, the last time we've seen him in a Belgian champions jersey was like, it's like 2021 or like 2020 when he was a Belgian champion, which feels like a lifetime ago, honestly. So, kind of feel bad for Van Aert because you can see he just really wants to win a championship, like a national one or a, I don't know, a world one, of course, or a European one at that, which I don't know. I feel like sometimes the European championship is like kind of like whatever for some reason, because I feel like people are even more excited about the national one than the European one for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's just like my stupidity kind of going in the way, but this is just like my point of view. But honestly, like when Jakobsen last year won the Europeans, everyone was like, yeah, the guy, like he had this crash in Poland. He's a great sprinter, won Tour de France. And he was like a European champion or whatever. It's like, the guy's a European champion. Any other sport, so it'll be like bragging about this shit, and you're kind of like, yeah, whatever. The guy, I guess he won the European Championship, but who freaking cares? Okay, whatever. And back to the Vuelta thing. I'm still kind of processing because, sometimes there's situations when you're like debating if something feels genuine, and that win, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't think it was that genuine. Like, I thought Jonas was really happy. This is gonna be controversial, but I'm not sure if Primož was as happy. I mean, but also, can you blame the guy? Like, he won the Giro, and after that, he like barely raced. Like, he did one race in between the Giro and the Vuelta. Like, he full on trained. He wanted to win the Vuelta. He wanted to do the 2 Grand Tours in 1 year. All that, focusing. You're like, his huge dream is to win the Tour, and he's not even going to the Tour because they're going with Jonas, focusing on him. But then you're like, yeah, don't race him. Stop. We want him to win. Which, logistically, I wanted Sepp to win, of course. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to, like, playing devil's advocate here. Like, you gotta see the point of view of the guy. You sacrifice not seeing your family for, like, X amount of time. Like, yeah, like, the Giro finishes, like, late May. So you have, like, the whole of June, the whole of July, and then, like, half of August. You barely see your family because you're training, probably somewhere in the mountains, something like that. And then you're like, you have that hunger, and it's like logical because I feel like he did have, the legs to win. Of course, Primož is like this rider who, for some reason, I mean, I get what reason, he gets this kind of stigma put on him that he's not as strong as Jonas because he just rides really differently. He's not the kind of rider when he attacks like 6K from the freaking finish and he goes and does a solo attack, drops everybody by like 5 minutes. He's kind of more subtle. He does like those little punches in the gut, and then he has a bit of a break. It's kind of different with him. So completely 2 different rider types, all that. But this Vuelta is kind of when we see the different dynamics in Jumbo, when you can see the different points of views of every rider, because when you think about it, every guy has a case for why he should win. Although I think Sepp was the best one, because you guys have been pushing this agenda of Sepp is this rider who has won us 6 Grand Tours, and every single time we've been on a podium won. Sepp is part of the team, and he's doing his 3rd Grand Tour, and he's the best, and all that. Now he's in the red jersey. You might want to help him, for once, because probably this is his only chance in his life where he actually has the ability to win a Grand Tour. He's not getting any younger, and he's not old, but he is in that point in his career when now Jonas is on the on the rise, and he knows that for the next X amount of years, he's going to be the one helping him. So he's thinking, shit, if I have this opportunity, what am I going to do with that? And Sepp is such a nice guy. He's not going to go out of his way and go like, yeah, guys, you should help me. Like, it's in his blood, you can say, like in his nature, to make sure that leaders win. It's kind of like he's been conditioned to live by that kind of mindset. He's not going to drop it like that. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing. For Jonas, he's thinking, I can make history of winning the tour and the Vuelta. Of course, it wouldn't have been like the first time someone has done that, but it's still a really big thing to do. Like, it's a really, really honorable thing to do. So he's thinking, I want to make sure I stamp myself as the guy who has kind of, proven I can win the Tour, I can win the Vuelta. I'm not a one race kind of guy. Of course, pretty much like I said, like my case earlier. But this is one of those situations when you start thinking, what is Jumbo now gonna do with Primož and Jonas? Because it's starting to feel like the team is getting too small for 2 big riders who have crazy ambitions, no freaking wonder, who both want to win the Tour, because we all know, despite what some people might think, Primož is not going to be content with winning Giros and Vueltas. The guy wants to win a Tour, and it's obvious. Although it is starting to get more and more unrealistic as the time goes by. He still wants to win it, and if you think otherwise, you're just being naive. He freaking wants to win that. But do you think there's a scenario where if he's on the same level as Jonas, or even on a lower one, the team is going to be like, yeah, we're going to go for you, Primož? It's not going to happen. So it's kind of the situation when you start thinking, what is he going to do? What is kind of his thought process? If he wants to, because the rumors of him transferring to a different team have been a thing for years now. Like every year, around the same time, sometimes there were rumors of him going to Ineos and then to Trek and all that stuff. So you're kind of thinking, what is the guy going to actually do? So this Vuelta kind of is that race that puts things into perspective, especially with the team kind of feeling like, I'm sorry, but if at some point it did get fixed later on, kind of, it felt like there's a huge car, like a huge, not even a car, like a truck. There's a lot of passengers on it, but there's no one behind the wheel. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to diminish like a Grisha or something, because the guy is a genius. Like, he has created one of the strongest, period, team in cycling. He has just gotten the best riders. He has used them perfectly. Sorry. He has used them perfectly. And I'm, going at him saying, like, fuck the guy. Like, he cannot do shit. He doesn't know. No, that's not the point of this rant. The point of it is kind of asking, do I think he knows what's the direction? Kind of, And that was, I kind of felt like at some point, we all want different things and we don't know what to do with it. Especially after that stage, oh my God, when Primož and Jonas dropped him, where it was that moment where I get there's ambition, I get that, but the guy's in the red jersey. It's the most obvious thing of what you have to do. Like, you have to ride with him. You're dropping Landa, of course. Even if you don't freaking drop him, you're going to win the sprint. You're going to win the sprint. Why do you care? Jonas doesn't care about time. He has lost so much time to you. He's no threat. You go to even if you don't drop him, you go to the sprint with him, you sprint with him, you win the sprint, obviously. Then they created this unnecessary drama, and that's why I'm saying the thing about the scab and the wound not fully healed, because it feels like there was a gushing, like a wound gushing with blood, and we kind of like threw a what's the word? The Polish was like plaster. Is that a word? I don't know. A Band-Aid. Yeah, a Band-Aid on it. And we're like, yeah, it's fine. It's not. Sorry, guys. My dog just walked in and he freaking spooked me. So you kind of threw the Band-Aid on the wound and you're like, it's good to go. When it's kind of not. I don't know. I guess you could say they're happy. I guess. But it's kind of like a thing of what's the future like for the team of Jumbo Visma, especially with the rumors of the merger. What can you say? So if you don't know what's going on, there are rumors about Quickstep, the team, of course. If you don't know as well, the team with Remco Evenepoel, the superstar of cycling, which personally I thought after the whole ordeal with him losing so much time and being so far back in the GC, the guy did so well for someone who had probably a pretty bad situation for him. He thought he's going to be fighting for GC, whatever. Not winning even, maybe podiuming at least. And he took a shitty situation and turned it around and won a bunch of stages and did it in a really, really, like a really good way. So I feel like he showed up, and I feel like especially when it comes to his teammates, I feel like the best one for him, period, was Catania. It's obvious he was the best one at the team for him on this Vuelta. No questions asked. But back to what I'm saying. There are rumors that Team Quickstep is going to merge with Team Jumbo Visma and create this merger team, thing, which I'm starting to get depressed because how are you going to balance if we're just talking purely leaders? You have Primož, you have Remco, you have Jonas. What are you going to do with that team? And you have Kuss, I guess. You can say the guy has won a Grand Tour. What are you going to do against that team? Like, that is insane. Also, another question, like a technicality question, is what is like the financial behind it? Because if there's a merger, in place, Remco is definitely going to be negotiating a new deal, because now he's on this really low salary because he was signed for, low salary as in the type of rider he is. He should get more money because he's such an amazing rider. So you're kind of like, he's definitely going to be rediscussing his deal. He's going to want a pay rise, obviously, and he's going to get that because like the guy has won the world championships, TT, the normal, like the road race, European. I think he won something. I think he won the European time trials. He's a national champ of both time trial and road race. So the guy has worth. He's a Grand Tour winner. I think now 3-time San Sebastian winner. He has won so much stuff, and you're telling me he's not gonna get a deal. He's gonna get a deal. Whatever. And you have Jonas, also high market value. The guy has won 2 Grand Tours. Any team would take him gladly. He would not want to leave. Not that I'm saying that, but any team would take him gladly because he knows the guy is a winning machine and he can win a Tour de France, which for any team is the most valuable. Blah blah blah. I don't think any team would have the financials to acquire Jonas easily, but we're talking hypotheticals here. And then you have Primož, who is the one you are probably most likely to grab if he decides to leave the team, because he's not the youngest. So you can, kind of maybe, we're talking discussions. You can maybe say, guy, we can sign you for a long-term deal, but, you're not as young. We can give you a long-term deal so you're you're going to get the money before you have to retire, and you're going to have the team built around you, all that jazz. And he probably wants to win the Tour, like I said before. And then you have Kuss. He's probably going to stay. He likes Jumbo Visma. I feel like he really is like a family vibe. Same with Jonas. I feel like even if we're not even talking about money here, he would want to stay with Jumbo Visma just because. And then you have all these amazing domestiques and all these like classics riders. Like, what are you going to freaking do? So that's why I'm thinking about this merger. And also just not what they're going to do, because, you have a limit of riders you can sign. I think it's 30 riders you can sign on like a full on, all that. And you have the Neo Pros also. So like how they're going to balance that? I have freaking no clue. And even if, like, it's going to be such a super extreme mega team. It's like Chicago Bulls-esque team. Like, no team is coming close to that. It's like not the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls, like the Golden State Warriors, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Iguodala, Clay. Did I mention? Yeah, and also I forgot Green. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just kind of one of those things when you're starting to think, what can you do to go against that, especially now from the POV of Pogacar? Because the guy it's like even currently he's fighting head over heels with Jonas and all that, and now he's gonna have to deal with that kind of team. I don't know. Of course, it's just rumors. Even if I don't think it would happen next year, there's rumors of it happening next year. I just cannot see that happening logistically. Like, how would they get all the staff to switch out and all that, like integrate? That's not gonna happen next year, I think, at least. But 2025 is not out of the picture. And also, I wonder how they're also gonna include the fact that Jumbo Visma is now switching sponsors, because Jumbo Visma like has quit on them because financial stuff. I think till they're like Olympics they're great guaranteed. I don't know, but other than that, that's the news we got, and I don't know how I feel about those. Hopefully we're gonna get some clarification, although I don't feel like there's gonna be a lot of clarification going. Van Aert like to tweet about how Lefebvre is at a football game with Remco. It's all just like so unclear as if to what is going. There's also was beef with Lefebvre going. He's saying the rider was partying in Las Vegas and not uploading anything on his Garmin, saying his Garmin was broken. Also, just talking about stuff. If you're a woman watching, if you're a woman listening, or a person who has a girlfriend who doesn't watch sports, tell her to watch sports, because sports are so dramatic. Like the drama, when I tell you, I now currently the Rugby World Cup is going on. I was never a rugby person. Like I never watched rugby. It's not really a thing in Poland, and kind of like I just never got into it. And before I even watched a minute of a rugby game, I knew what the hell was going on, because there was so much drama with coaches, with players being suspended for dangerous tackles, and for, different teams, dynamics, all that stuff, like rivalries. Sorry, I cannot say that word for the life of me. And like, just tell them all the drama, and they're going to be living for it. And as we're on the topic of drama, here's to me talking about the F1 Japanese Grand Prix. Thank frick that is over, because that was just a mess. So now we're going to just swiftly move on from cycling. I might do another podcast of me talking about, cycling stuff soon, but I don't feel like there's much to talk about. Maybe I'm going to do a deep dive onto Vuelta again, or maybe like a deep dive of different topics. I don't know, but I'm definitely going to do something that I'm, going to talk about now. I'm probably now, as the cycling off season kind of is starting and Formula 1 is ending soon, I'm going to probably do deep dives into different drivers and riders. So I don't know. I don't know who I'm going to go with first, but now I'm going to go and just talk about the Grand Prix, the Suzuka Grand Prix. And it was something. It was something. First off, I'm going to tell you something right now. I am not the biggest fan of Red Bull. And you're like, oh, of course, she doesn't like Red Bull, like typical, women stuff. Like, oh, you're probably going to be a Ferrari fan because, Charles Leclerc is hot. I am a Ferrari girl, but also a Mercedes. First of all, at heart, Lewis Hamilton fan. Always will be, always wear. I have like 4 shirts, 2 caps. I love Lewis Hamilton. He's, in my opinion, the greatest driver of all time. And you can argue with the wall, because we're not even talking statistics here. Just, his performing as a rookie kind of, greatness. I love him. One of the greatest. You can, do the whole discussion of Schumacher, and yeah, there's different statistics that, Lewis has the most wins and Lewis has the most poles, but you can say, oh, but Schumacher had a season where he was basically always on the podium, but you can also have an argument that the season was shorter, all that stuff. But just, discussing everything, like me going on a ramble, who would have thought? The Grand Prix was something, like I said. First of all, the qualifying, it was just, Sargent crashing yet again. At this point, I'm like, the poor guy, he must feel so horrible, because he's getting trolled. You already know he's getting trolled online. You cannot go on Twitter like a F1 Twitter and not see a troll comment about Sargent. It's like impossible. At least once a day. You cannot do that. And I mean, he has caused the most money out of all the drivers when it comes to damage, which if you're a team like Williams, you do not want to be the number one statistic when it comes to money and damage and all that stuff. You want to be the lowest. But, I don't know what they're going to do. Definitely going to keep Albon. I think he's signed even for like the next 2 years or something like that. Because I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for him. Like, obviously, he's not going to want to leave Williams, at least for now, because he said even himself, I don't know if he said that, or maybe I'm making it up, but he does not want to be back in the Red Bull family, at least for now, as a main driver, which is, logical. I feel like it's logical. And although, like, I don't know, I'm going to get into Perez in a sec. And then you have Sargent. I feel like they're going to drop him. I don't think he's signed. If he's not, predicting right now, they're probably going to try and sign Lawson. I don't know. Especially now that AlphaTauri announced that they re-signed Ricardo and, what's his name? Yuki. And also that's something. Who would have thought? I'm not one of those people that are Ricardo fans. I like Ricardo. He's one of those really, cool drivers. Love him. Love Daniel. Was excited for him to come back. But why is he getting re-signed? Like, after that? Like, the guy did, like, 1 or 2 races and he crashed. And now he has a broken hand. Like, I just don't understand why he was re-signed now for, like, a year. When you have a guy who has scored you the most points in his second or first race for you. I don't know. I get that they're trying to think of like a stable team, because now on one hand you have Yuki, who is already yuking and causing chaos and being messy and being one of those drivers when you're like, it's either going to be amazing or either it's going to be hellfire on earth. So, but then you have Yuki's not a rookie. He's not a rookie. But he's really unpredictable. So I kind of count him in that genre of drivers who are not rookies, but kind of sometimes feel like ones. And then you have Lawson, who would be a rookie. And he would, because you can't really count the season as his first year, because he's doing like 3 races. I don't know. Even if. So I get their point. But then you have a guy like Ricardo, and it's going to be, with the hands and all that stuff. It's all just messy. I personally think they should have maybe waited and seen him for more races. Because we've seen drivers getting signed really late. Like when Perez got signed to Red Bull, he, got signed super late. So don't tell me that you're under time pressure and you want to sign your drivers, because no one's going to be fighting for Ricardo Yuki. Like, no one. Because even if Red Bull were to kick out Perez, which I think they will do, I honestly, as much as they're trying to preach about how Perez is, part of the team and all that, they're going to kick him out. By next year, someone else is going to be in that seat. And even if they don't kick him out this year, they're going to kick him out next year mid-season, or something, if he keeps on doing what the is doing now. Because what is he doing? Like, they got the biggest gap in between teammates of all, the whole grid. The top 2 is, the first one is Verstappen, the second is Russell. And it's over 2.5 seconds, the gap, the average gap to teammate, basically. I don't know if it's race time or not qualifying, but race time probably. Which is just such a headache when you think about what car the guy has. The best car in the grid, period. I know it's designed for Max, probably. The setup is all Max, depending on if Max likes oversteer or understeer. But still, you have a great car. And if you're a class driver, sorry, I'm going to say this. I think Perez could have sneaked his way into that Red Bull seat. He kind of low-key did sneak his way into that, because he was at Racing Point. And when he had he was driving well. He had that amazing last race of his career, winning, all that. But, like, I don't know. I feel like there's so many more drivers who would have been even better in that seat. Well, now I'm talking about. You don't know what I'm talking about. But even if. Whatever. And back to what I was saying. The Japan Grand Prix, the Japanese Grand Prix, qualifying, Max wins qualifying. I don't know, that's kind of anticlimactic of me saying who wins, but who would you expect to have won the freaking Grand Prix if not Max? The qualifying if not Max. Of course it's gonna be Max. Last week was just a bump in the road. It's like that German Grand Prix of Mercedes in like 2019, 18, I don't remember. Where it was when they did the whole, like, they dressed up in like old German clothing, and Mercedes, they were looking rough out there. So that was their German Grand Prix, the Singapore Grand Prix for Red Bull. It was bump in the road. And then, you come to Japan, you think, oh my God, maybe we're going to have another one of those epic fights for the first place. It was so exciting. You have 4 guys fighting for first place. You have Carlos Sainz, going genius mode, trying to figure out how he can use his DRS and use that to his advantage. You have Lando trying to protect himself from the 2 Mercedes, which personally, if Lewis, and also I'm not saying if George would have let Lewis through, Lewis would have won. I'm saying if Lewis would have qualified better, because he even said himself his qualifying this year has been lacking, and we can see that he's clearly losing unnecessary points and just, race positions due to his poor qualifying, because his qualifying has not been up to the standard we have, seen him. We have seen that he can, climb up to. But, back to that, I think he would have probably won. But, it was just such an amazing race. Like, who's going to win? What's going to happen? It was so exciting. And then we get to Japan, and it's, it was kind of cute. Like, the race was, I'm going to be honest, though. I did not watch the race. I watched it, but I watched the 30-minute version of F1 TV on F1 TV. And I kind of, like, sped through some parts, But I know what happened. I kind of know what happened. And I just, wanted to give my opinions on stuff because, I did watch qualifying, though. I got out for that one. I could not get... You expect me to get up at 7 a.m. and not fall asleep? At the, the lap 17 mark always gets kind of hard when it's, like, nothing is really kind of going on. And you're kind of, like, looking at the TV and thinking, like, is something going to happen? I'm just going to close my eyes for a second. And then you wake up and you can hear the Dutch anthem. Do, 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 do. I don't, like, it's just... And then we, back to the Grand Prix. We see the freaking... I cannot get my... I've not done a podcast in too long. That's why I'm so chaotic today. Back to what I was saying. Oscar Piastri, P2. And I'm going to be honest, I've been on the Oscar Piastri hype train since F3. Since the guy has been in F3. Like, I'm such a Oscar Piastri girly. I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of McLaren. And you can think of, like, me. I just literally said 2 seconds ago, I'm not that big of a Ricardo girly. When you would think, oh, she probably loves Ricardo, and she's, like, mad at McLaren for kind of, being not so nice to him. No, I didn't like what they did. And I sometimes side-eye Lando Norris because the guy is just kind of weird sometimes. Although I am the type of person I say I've not liked Max Verstappen as much as a person, like at different moments. But I can tell you he's probably the second best driver on the grid right now. The first one is Lewis Hamilton. I will always tell you Lewis Hamilton is the best. I mean, I don't know. When it comes to form, Max is just, even better now. And I'm, throwing my hands up in the air and I'm saying, I think that's true. I feel like that's true, and I'm going to be honest with that. But I can judge you and side-eye you and say, you're a weirdo sometimes. Sometimes you are kind of weird. And that's why I kind of side-eye Lando sometimes. But back to what I was saying. I love saying, back to what I was saying. My favorite word, my favorite sentence. And so I've been on the Oscar Piastri train since forever. And I remember the petty wars of the contracts last year of him, going, I am not actually signed to Alpine, and I do not know what the hell these people talking about. I do not know what they talking about, but I'm definitely not a driver for them. So peace. And then he was like, I'm going to McLaren. And now he actually just extended till 2026. So shout out to him. And I feel like it's going to be one of those I don't know. I feel like, will Lewis Hamilton retire by then? 2024. Depending if he wins a championship, I think. If he feels good, no. If he doesn't feel good and he's like, and he won a championship, he's like, I'm done with this. Probably they're going to snatch Piastri. And he's going to, or he's going to get that Red Bull seat if Red Bull's going to be still dominating. Because the guy is just showing he's really freaking good. Because, yeah, you can say that he was slower than Lando in the race. But, yeah, no shit. Lando's been a driver for so much longer than him. Obviously, there's going to be times where Lando's going to be the better driver. Like, obviously. He's been driving for 4 years now, I think. He's been a driver since 2019. For F1, of course. So, yeah, it's probably going to happen, but he's still showing that, dude, I can qualify pretty freaking well because I just out-qualified you, and I've been really, really good, and I've been not under pressure as much, and I just podiumed as a rookie, so shout out to me. I'm pretty good at this. And also, I love the fact that Mark Webber is his manager, so, yeah, I feel like that's iconic because I love Mark Webber, and I really like him, so it's like that beautiful Australian double, and I really identify with Oscar because at heart, I'm such an introvert. And whenever I see him interacting with anyone on the grid, I'm like, this is how I would act. Like, I'm a nice person. I can be nice, but I will never be like a Lando. Like, yeah, guys, what's up? It's me. Hello, everybody. Like, welcome. No, I'm not going to do that. Like, I just do not have the facilities for that, And, kind of going back to what I said about Lewis. Lewis has just been lacking qualifying. He did qualify Russell, but it's like, I feel like you should be able to do better. I feel like he has just been kind of not hitting those momentary purple sectors or those really good green sectors, or kind of being unproblematic in qualifying. Sometimes his qualifying feels kind of sloppy when you're like, he's not looking that strong. But, and Russell sometimes uses that to his, ability, because he can say, guys, I qualified. I qualified him. So, I should get that or whatever. And, yeah, when it comes to, what else happened in qualifying, Alpine's 12th, 14th. I love looking at the Alpines because they're like so out of the picture, but then you're like, you remember the drama they had when they were kids. And I would die to know what was the thing that they had this major falling out over. The guys were like super close when they were kids, and then like nothing. Like they hate each other now. Because, yeah, you can, shove those PR photos up my throat if you're like, yeah, I love me with Esty. I can see you don't like that man. Especially when before the season started, Pierre, Charles, and Esteban went to like a basketball game, and I think Charles posted a photo with Esteban like cropped out. So like, and he's best friends with Pierre, so he's probably Team Pierre in their beef. Although Pierre has been so question mark, whatever. I mean, the guy's dating a really young girl. I'm gonna be honest, it's weird. It's weird that the guy's dating like a 19-year-old when he's... I don't want to get into political stuff here. Although I will always say, if you're Nelson Piquet, I do not like you because you're racist. So that is political, and I will say that. But that's the only political thing I will say. Because that's kind of political, like racism, Oh my God, I don't even know what I'm talking about right now. But then, back to F1 stuff. Well, the race happened because qualifying, I feel like this is kind of like, yeah, this is all we can talk about. Ferraris are Ferrari leveling. Like they're there. They're are on the place where they probably you would think they would be. So, then the race starts, and already I'm like, this is the first moment of me looking at Perez and being like, what the hell are you doing in that seat? I will personally fly to Japan, spend my own money, my parents, spend my own money, and fly to Japan and grab you by the collar, because I know you're a short man because you're an F4 driver, so you're short. Grab you, and I will personally escort you out of that car. Because what the hell are you doing? Why? I know there was like people saying, oh, well, he didn't have the space on his right either. Well, why are you there then? You can just, not, possibly you can just not go into that place. And he hit Lewis. I get you can hit someone once, but then he went out of his way to hit him for the second time. And that shit hits you in the face, because then he had to change his front his front wing. So this is a lesson, kids. Do not be a meanie, because that was mean, and I feel like that was some weird shit. I do not get what he has this issue of ramming into people. Last week, even I think it was Album. He like just ran him off the road, like he just whacked into his ass, and he was like, peace. I'm gonna go now. Like, I feel like we have gotten so used to his antics that now he can just do shit. And we'll be like, yeah, he's doing whatever. And Red Bull's like, Max Verstappen. So you're kind of like, I'm so chaotic today. So already I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then there's a Williams crash, and I think it was Joe who was just involved in that crash. And it was just all so messy. Like, what are y'all doing? Like, what are you doing? And when it comes to the important things that happened during the race, in my opinion, first of all, the Mercedes beef. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what is the point of fighting so intensely, especially if you're Russell? Because I'm going to be honest, there's this weird agenda, especially created by the team of Mercedes, of them kind of selling us this weird, narrative of George and Lewis are equals. They're equal. Based on what? The 0 championship George has? And you can say like, well, you're being mean now. The guy is so much younger than Lewis. He has not raced as many years or whatever. But you're talking about one of the most talented and the most decorated driver in the sport, and Russell, who has won one race. So like, I get he's a talent, he's doing really well, but now when you look on the grand scheme of things, your team should be thinking, we want to win over Ferrari in constructors. Gotta do that first. We gotta win over them in races, because of the constructors. We want to keep Lewis as high up in the drivers, because if Perez keeps on doing this fucking shit, maybe Lewis can even climb up to second in the drivers' championship. So you're like, no wonder he's going to try and be as high up in the races. Like, it's just so weird to me that there's like this weird baffling of, why is Lewis fighting him and why is he doing all this? He probably thinks the team should be backing him. He has been putting up with this kind of shit of Mercedes, and you can say, oh well, every team can have a bad car. I'm not even talking about the car stuff, because the lack of a good car has been the downfall of Mercedes. I'm going to tell you why. They have shown that due to them always having, not always, but like, those years that they had the best car, that they had the best car and they were lacking in, maybe strategies or maybe pit stops, but due to their amazing car, they kind of got away with it. And now that you're in a team Mercedes, where you have a car that is pretty similar. It depends on track, from track to track. You're fighting Ferrari, McLaren, and sometimes Aston, but now not as much. But so there's some really small margins of mistake that you can do, and those kind of small things that have been left not taken care of for X amount of years are starting to come out and be really ugly. And the guy's sticking through it. Even if, because I feel like the pit stops have just been pathetic. Like, how can you be such a good team and have such shitty pit stops? Like, I get it's random and stuff, but they have been one of those teams that has just never, they don't hit those really fast ones. Like, the last Lewis one I remember was 4 seconds, which is just, I don't know, it's like too long. When you have a team like Red Bull who already, and this is why Red Bull was one of those teams that they managed sometimes to win races despite not being as strong as Mercedes way back when, because they had amazing strategies, they had amazing pit stops, they were a really, kind of like, we do this, we do that, we do this, and that makes us win. And now you're adding a great car to this, and that's how it should be. Whereas with Mercedes, it's like, we're okay at this, we're good at that, but our car is like freaking so strong, like rocket ship level. So this is why I think that this is why I say he has been putting up with your shit. Because I'm not talking about cars here, because cars is different things. Although the whole no side pod concept and Toto being just kind of an egotistical maniac, kind of like, our concept is gonna work, where it clearly wasn't working, and kind of sticking through it. So, whatever. You do you, babe. But now you have to work on those other things instead of going to Harvard and talking about how I want to make a business, where we gotta do this shit. Because we don't have that much, strings to pull at this point. Because Ferrari's looking, even though they do have some beef, and it's Ferrari, guys, like Ferrari, the team of chaos. Like, how are you losing against the team of chaos? The team that literally wanted to do a pit stop without wheels. You cannot be doing that. You cannot be creating unnecessary things if not having the upper hand on them. You cannot have that kind of situation. But and also then they had this weird thing of Russell wanted to do a single pit stop. He wanted to do a one-stop strategy. He said that, he wanted to do that himself. And then you have a guy chasing your driver who is fighting for the driver's championship in constructors. And he does not want to lose unnecessary points due to you creating a situation for yourself by doing a single pit stop strategy. And he's like, you know what? Let me through. I want to, go. Or like racing you. And you're, baffled on the radio talking about how he wanted to ran you off the road, which I feel like, yeah. And I'll put my hands up here. Lewis was really aggressive. But how can he not be? Like, he wants to, do something here. But then, like, you're complaining that he wants to move ahead of you. Because, like, then he wants to race. You're complaining he wants to race. He wants to go ahead of you because the team is asking you because they want to give him as many points as possible. And you're like, well, then Sainz going to get me. Like, dude, you don't get the picture. And even if they could have done something much earlier and not allowed a situation like this to happen, I don't know. I feel like the team should just kind of have this very strong conversation of, shut up. We're going for the driver's championship for Lewis. Like, get over it. Let's say, if you would be in the same situation as Lewis, I am telling you guys, if George would be in the same situation as Lewis, it would have been a given that he, gets the point. Like, even last year, Lewis was kind of like the car they were testing everything on. Like, the guy really sacrificed the first half of his season because they were testing every single thing on him. And now, when the roles are reversed and you kind of have to sacrifice something for yourself, all of a sudden it's such a big deal. You know, it's kind of like you have to have that conversation at one point. And if Toto does not have that without being, that positive, typical Toto kind of like, kind of saying stuff of, we want to be a team, we want to do that. And he wants this team to work. I feel like, if you had the situation with Hamilton and Rosberg, you should have learned on your own that it's never good. Sorry, guys, my chair is like, I'm going to fix it real quick. If you already had a team that had issues of like egos and not knowing who's the number one driver, maybe you should have known better by now. And it seems like he kind of doesn't. So, But back into Perez territory, because Perez had a race. He had a race. It's not. I'm not gonna tell what race. He had a race. He did some racing. So he kind of crashes with Lewis, has a wing changed, is last on the grid, and then he's racing Magnussen like so intensely. Like you would have thought he's racing prime Michael Schumacher Ferrari years, like guy going for world championship. No, he's racing a Haas. He cannot move past that shit whatsoever. It's like he got the same car that he had in Singapore or something. I don't know. And he's racing Magnussen so like fiercely, and he cannot pass him for the life of him. And then he ends up crashing into his ass again, into someone's ass. And they do a whole spin around, and he gets a penalty. But then yeah, he's gonna get a penalty. Then he goes into the pits, retires, and you're like, okay. But then a few laps later, 6 laps later, he gets back into the car, and you're like, what? It's one of those situations where like it feels illegal, but it's not. You're like, they were able to do all that, and like it's illegal and stuff like that. And they put him back into the car. He sits there for like 20 something, like a few-ish laps, and then he goes out, drives around for a little bit, does a little loop, and they're like, retire again. And I feel like that was just kind of a summary of this season for him. You're like, you thought it couldn't get worse. It just got worse. Like, you would think the guy has had probably one of the worst seasons of a driver in a few years that we've seen. Like, people are comparing it to Albon 2020, where now, statistically, Albon placed higher on the grid in a worse car because the 2020 Red Bull was not as strong as this one, of course. So it's kind of like, I don't know, like just seeing this whole Perez situation is making me think, like, is Red Bull really going to keep him for 2024? I'm starting to, lose hope that they're actually going to do it. Like, do you guys actually think they're going to keep him? Red Bull, the team who's like famous for kicking out drivers whenever they feel like it. So, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they're trying to set up a Ricardo situation, and that's why they signed him at AlphaTauri, because we all know that team is controlled by Red Bull, of course. So that whole situation is just really confusing. And of course, the grand news of this Grand Prix that Red Bull are officially, despite the messy race of Checo, the Constructors' Championships of 2023, it was a matter of time. They have won. As you can hear, I'm ecstatic about the fact that they have won, which, congratulations to them. I just wish we would, have a season where it's not decided in Suzuka and it's, a bit more close, and there's not as much nothing going on in the championship fight. It's one of those situations when you're like, Formula One is this is also my argument for the whole saying, oh, we're Mercedes, we're winning championships. People were not complaining as much as they're complaining now. I mean, well, Mercedes were not winning 10 races in a row. You know what I mean? Like, they were winning those championships, but Mercedes was not winning 10 races like Lewis was not winning 10 races in a row. Like, and it's even worse that Max did not win 10 races in a row and he didn't win again. He had a 1 week break. And he's like, I'm back again. I'm back to winning. So that's why it's kind of, sometimes depressing to realize what the situation is. And I'm kind of like, well, great, awesome. Another year of this. Because I don't feel like it's ending. I feel like Max is probably gonna get like 2 more. He's gonna get like till 5 championships. Although that sounds illegal to say. I do not understand how he got that first one though. Still, to this day, it's one of those like. There's currently a trend on TikTok of like how men randomly think about the Roman Empire, and how it's like engraved in their minds. And I'm like, it's the same with me, but with Abu Dhabi 2021 race. How the hell how they allow that to happen? Well, dangerous territory to get into that conversation because I'm gonna get called different names for her talking about that. But the rest of the race of things that were kind of interesting that happened was McLaren deciding to let sorry guys, my dog is making all different noises in the back. He's a pretty big dog, and so they made Oscar let Lando through, which just was like, I'm not gonna be mad about that because obviously he was slower than Lando in the race, but still amazing. He's the first rookie since I think since Lance Stroll to be on the podium as a rookie, and he has proven that he's a freaking strong driver. Second qualifying, third in the race, and McLaren, not in a Red Bull. So amazing. Because I'm gonna tell you about the whole Red Bull situation, because when you're in a Red Bull car and you're not Max, the minimum is P2, P3, I guess, but P2. You should not be out of the race doing all this messy shit you're currently doing. Like, what is Perez doing? The guy wants to lose his job, I guess. I don't know. What can you do? And also, another sports news. My beautiful country, Poland, are the European champions of volleyball. And I'm going to tell you, the quarterfinals and the semifinals were literally more nerve-wracking than the final with Italy that we played. Because I feel like they were kind of smashing them up. Like, Leon was just playing out of his mind, like serving so incredibly, just being, just proving once again why all this talk about him not deserving to play in the national team is bullshit, and why he freaking deserves to play, and why he's the best volleyball player in the world right now. And that's why he was the MVP. Also, rugby stuff, rugby news. I'm not the biggest rugby person, but kind of do watch some rugby. Australia losing to Wales. Oh, sorry guys, my dog just really wants to be heard today. So Australia losing to Wales for the first, not for the first time, but like just Australia losing twice, and they lost to Fiji for the I don't know which time, for some time after 60 something years against Fiji. So Australia's a mess when it comes to rugby right now. So South Africa, Ireland, and Ireland won, which I was so excited about because Don't get me wrong. I'm like South Africa is a great team, but still, it's like so crazy that actually this year they might actually not win the whole rugby World Cup. And I feel like that's most of it when it comes to sports news and sports stuff from this week. Maybe we could talk about some UFC stuff, but no one really is that interested about UFC this week. Nothing that exciting. Of course, the UFC event is going on where we have the rematch of Charles Oliveira with, oh my god, the guy has to be so obnoxious today, and Islam Makhachev, and we have Khamzat against Paulo Costa. So exciting stuff is probably going to be going on. We have Elon Bardia coming up, so sports are thriving. I don't know what I'm going to talk about on the next episode, because currently it's kind of like a gray zone. Nothing really, special going on. But I'm probably going to talk maybe some F1 news or maybe something about the merger. I don't know, but today was one of those episodes where I kind of wanted to talk about different things and different topics, different sports, finally merging my F1 cycling knowledge / thoughts and, kind of letting everything out. When it comes to my F1 podcast, I'm probably going to want to be more, kind of prepared. But this race, I kind of, like I said, I fell asleep. And then I watched the shorter version, but I just kind of saw what were the most important things that happened and what I thought about them. But yeah, that's it when it comes to the stuff that happened, and I'm probably gonna do another one of these soon. And thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'm gonna see you on the next one.